Hey, what's up? Welcome back to another edition of the Mandatory. We're going to get into a lot of things. We're going to get into Tank Davis fighting Lamont Roach on pay-per-view. We're going to get into Teofimo Lopez making some racist remarks, as he's done before. And we're also going to get into a big law case. But before we get into that, I just want to say, if you like the content, hit that like and subscribe button. It helps the channel grow. And you can also find us on the audio side. So wherever you get your shows, podcasts, you can find us there as well. If you got a couple of minutes, leave a rate and review because that helps the show grow as well. And for everyone that's already liked and subscribed, we do appreciate you. Bryan, lots to get into. I feel like in terms of news, pretty interesting week. And I think that's exactly where we have to start off on. Before we get into all of that, though, did you enjoy any of the fights this past weekend?
I did.
Because you were there. You were there at the fight.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, I did. However,
It was a big trade that happened, right?
yeah, I had to dip home before the card even ended. So I did catch the rest of it at home. Listen, that fight was really close. I still need to do my rewatch for Michaela Mayer and Sandy Ryan, but
Yeah.
that really could have, and I would argue maybe should have been a draw. It was very, very, very tight. I saw a good amount of people thought Sandy Ryan won. Also, I could see that.
It's too close. It like when it's 2-minute rounds.
I hate that. Yeah.
How it's always close. Like we're always sitting there after like that was a close fight. Who won that fight?
Yeah.
Honestly, I think Mayer did enough. But if
Yeah.
you thought it was a draw, I wouldn't be mad at that. If you thought Sandy Ryan won, I wouldn't be mad at that. But I think 97-93 was trash as a scorecard.
That was bad. That was too wide. I would have felt most comfortable with the draw. I do think we should get a rematch. I know Sandy Ryan absolutely wants one, and for other reasons as well. But this is what I was kind of like worried about, because it was like, oh, Michaela Mayer's probably set up to finally get her title here because this was in America. She's been quote unquote robbed twice, which I don't think she was robbed either time she lost those fights to Natasha Jonas or Alicia Baumgartner. Alicia Baumgartner also fight, but that went to a no contest because of I think clash of heads.
Once again, though, close fights because 2-minute rounds.
Yeah.
Once again, we're always left like, oh my god, that was a close fight. But
I think she was fighting in a thong with like.
When did this happen?
You have to just see the highlights because it's just, I don't know. She's fighting and Delphine Pursoon is in like a knee brace and Alicia Baumgartner's ass is out the entire time. And then you have like this small ass venue on some network that I don't even like know too much about. It was just a mess, kind of. So we'll see her next fight, how that goes.
Great fight, though.
And just wrapping up, because we are going to get to news, and Jesus asked about Janibek. We are going to watch it. We're not doing a live show. We may end up talking about it because there's a lot of news to get to. I also want to say on this card from last week, Bruce Carrington, not quite ready for Naoya Inoue. I thought he was going to potentially stop Sagawa, and this was a majority decision that also probably could have been a draw. And I thought Xander Zayas looked outstanding again.
I think he took another step forward, Xander Zayas, and he wants a top opponent, and it's really exciting. As for Janibek, we are probably, I think possibly, because we have a pretty big show today, I think we're going to get into a lot of things.
Yeah.
We might save that for next week because I think the division itself is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
In a sense that, who is Janibek fighting?
Yeah. He may lose. Like, it's entirely possible. He struggled with the weight cut last time to the point of they had to postpone the bout.
And they just been building him up for so long, and he's sneakily getting older. There's a lot to discuss on that end, but we got some other things to talk about, and keep the comments coming. Before we get there, I just want to say, Jesus, a friend of the show, Mayer Ryan, Fight of the Year candidate, great fight. Like one of the best fights I've seen this year. I don't even want to label it as just a women's fight. I thought it was a dope boxing fight.
Yeah, I agree. I think I think it was I think Mayer Jonas was actually great also fight. Like, this is another one that was up there too. Yeah. And Zayas, I also think he should fight Vito Mielnicki next, who
Ooh,
also did not. A lot of the A side struggled on this card. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Like Sandy Ryan lost, though that should have been a draw, but that was a close fight. Bruce Carrington easily could have had a draw. Vito Mielnicki's fight, he wasn't overwhelming. A lot of people thought Tiger Johnson lost his fight,
I did.
where he gets a favorable decision. I'm trying to remember Floyd Diaz also very unspectacular performance. He started off very hot, and then like I don't know what happened with his gas tank necessarily, but a lot of the A sides kind of struggled, even though all of them won except for Sandy Ryan.
Yeah. And Jesus Zayas, very basic, needs to turn it up. Zayas, very safe first. I think I've seen the improvement from him. Brian, do you want to make a comment on that before we move away from it and get into all the news?
He was in this guy's face the entire time, and Damian Sosa couldn't hit him. Like
And
I just
remember, Sosa's a guy that was like high work rate and volume was his thing, and he just wasn't doing that in the fight.
yeah,
I don't know what his game plan was.
Zayas immediately just controlled the fight from start to finish. He just couldn't put away of a super tough dude, and I think he has everything you want in a boxer, except he doesn't have amazing one punch knockout power. He does have strength, and his finishing ability is probably, it's not going to be there against like some of the super top dudes unless he grows into his body a little bit more. Because again, he is very young, but I don't think he's going to be some knockout artist. I just think he's going to be a really skilled boxer who could compete with anybody in his weight class.
And I think he's going to be one of those guys that break you down round by round. You said something really important, though. I don't think he's grown into his body and into his power. We're going to see that as his career goes on. I'm going to quickly mention this because we're not going to talk about it. Shantelle, we're not going to start with Devontae Adams. I would be on here talking about it all day, but we got boxing to talk about. So we'll save that for another time. Hustle Man for sure. And Hustle Man, good friend on the show, also said Shushu lost. Listen, some
He's
of
not
it,
alone in that. He's not alone in
a
that.
lot of people were saying that, as well as Tiger Johnson. So some controversy as well, but that is going to bring us to our first topic because there's lots of controversy on this as well. Devin Haney is suing Ryan Garcia for battery, fraud, and more. Not just those two. This is a big lawsuit. Bryan, your thoughts on this? And obviously, this all stems from Ryan Garcia taking PEDs, what happened in their fight. This is something that you actually said when we were talking off air when the news broke out about Ryan Garcia. One of the first things Bryan had texted me was, yo, he could sue Devin Haney. I
Yeah, I
didn't
didn't
think it
think
would happen.
me
I don't
neither.
think you did either, but it's happening. So your thoughts, Bryan, on this?
Yeah. Listen, there's a lot here, but first let's get into like a couple quotes that I just pulled from the lawsuit that ESPN may or may not have helped with. But this is important to know as it pertains to the actual lawsuit and what Ryan Garcia is being sued by Devin Haney for. I don't remember the last time a boxer sued another boxer for this specific thing. Maybe it's never happened, but I can't remember. While Devin Haney agreed to participate in a prize fight against Garcia, quote states, at no time did he engage in a bout against an individual who had taken a performance enhancing drug, the lawsuit states. And then Haney would have never fought a boxer who was positive for a PED, even though Bill Haney was saying beforehand, like they were talking spicy before this fight, talking about like they're going to kill Ryan Garcia, whatever. I've seen a couple people brought up like, hey, could Ryan Garcia be presented with a counter suing opportunity here? I'm not. I don't have a law degree. You know what I mean? I've seen suits, but I don't have a law degree to tell you like how this definitively would work. Ryan Garcia respond, I'm being sued for doing my job. This fight has been a Netflix documentary, but this right here is the finale. Your Honor, he simply struggles with left hook syndrome, which was mildly funny. There's something to be said for that, which we'll get into. So I don't think that well, I don't know actually if Devin Haney's gonna win this lawsuit because I mean anything's possible as it pertains to Ryan Garcia. But I do think that this is going to be looked down upon in boxing. I see his case because I thought he could sue him because of what happened, right? Like you fought somebody who you seemingly didn't know was using performance enhancing drugs, or at least that's what he's maintaining. Like he had no idea, even though, if I recall, they went ahead with the fight. Although that was actually weight, that was not performance enhancing drugs. Like he went ahead with the fight, even though Ryan Garcia showed up overweight. So I thought he could sue because it's like, all right, somebody shows up with steroids in their system and then they do that to you. Like boxers can't do this. They don't always do it, and they typically don't. But there's a real legal case here. I didn't think he would do it. And also, like, there are elements of this where he's suing him for, like, I believe mental distress and things of that nature, where it's taking it to another level where people are like, all right, bro, come on. Even though, like, he's trying to win a lawsuit. So, like, this makes sense. But even though Devin Haney's in his right to do this, he kind of also looks like a sucker because of how he's going about it. Along with the fact that a lot of people don't like him anyway. Like whenever he returns to the ring, people are going to boo the shit out of him, regardless of who it's against. And he's just going to be one of these dudes who has been trying to be like Floyd Mayweather. And now this happens, and this is how he handles it. And the other thing that rubbed people the wrong way was he really celebrated after his O was put back on his record. Like really
The
talked a lot of
dancing?
shit.
Yo, he was
Yeah.
dancing on Instagram.
Yeah, so like this is a super gray area thing. I don't think this is black and white. Like I think Devin Haney could be within his right to do it, and you could also look at him like a sucker for actually doing it because of the way he's doing it. If that makes sense.
So I think that's the biggest thing. I think he's just rubbed people the wrong way. First, when the way that he lost. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't matter that Ryan Garcia took PEDs and that there was a substance found in his body that he said it was a tainted supplement. Doesn't matter how much was in his body, even though I said that there was like a very, very tiny amount. But it's the way that Devin lost.
Yeah.
It's always going to be in my mind. That's always going to be in my mind. Like the broken jaw at the end, the way that Ryan dominated that fight. Right. And that week leading up to it, when you're hearing all these interviews coming out, like Devin Haney sat down with Andre Ward. And Devin's like, yeah, I was like sleeping and getting my rest during the week. And, all I heard was Ryan was just partying with girls all the time. And like, you know what I mean? Then like, this is what Devin was saying in an interview. So to also know that Ryan wasn't even like 100% focused. Like during the weigh-in, he came in, slammed a beer, stepped on the scale, came out 3 pounds overweight for the fight. And that was the first thing. But going back to what happened, like it's always going to be in my mind how Devin lost. And then the PEDs thing comes out and he's celebrating knowing that he's still undefeated. We saw what happened. Like, I don't think a lot of people care at the end of the day about the PEDs in terms of how we saw Devin lose, right? In terms of the entire lawsuit, it's boxing. Like you're suing him for battery. I get it. The PEDs. Don't get it twisted. I get it. But it's super lame. Like I thought this was boxing. I don't remember the last time this happened or if it's ever happened. Like I'm trying to think if I can actually remember that. I think it's super lame. And it also just creates more of a villain aspect for Devin because he doesn't look cool. Like, what's the one thing, like, growing up as a kid? You want to like all the cool boxers. You know what I mean? Like, you want to like Mike Tyson. Like, you want to like all these, like, cool boxers. And, like, he kind of has, like, a lame aura around him after dancing, for getting his O back. And then now suing Ryan for battery. And the mental aspect, I will actually give that to him. Because when you think about the fact how he lost, we don't know what type of repercussions he'll be dealing with later on in terms of his body because he got knocked out like that. He got dropped many times in that fight. But just trying to get through that, everything you heard on social media, like mentally, we don't actually know what Devin Haney was going through. And even though I'm saying like it's lame that he's suing someone, I've always said this, like I don't buy Devin Haney being like mean and rude. He just seems like a nice kid to me that's trying to sell a fight. He just comes off as like a good kid, right?
Yeah.
And
Like
that's
you're saying he's a poser, basically. Like, he's trying to be something.
yeah.
He's
And
not.
the poser is such a like high school term that like, you're such a poser, right? But
Yeah.
I like not even that. Like I think Devin comes off as just like a nice kid. like a nice person. I'm sure like when he meets fans and stuff, he's super chill and nice, but he has to take a role into being a boxer and selling a fight. And I think that's what he does. And he's taking that villain route. Just like now people are going to just want to watch him so they can see him lose or see him get knocked out again. Because I think he's rubbed people the wrong way. It's kind of like how a lot of people, not myself, because I've always been a Mayweather fan, but a lot of people hated Mayweather. Like people just didn't like him at one point in his career when he was Money May. And a lot of people rooted against him. And I think Devin has kind of taken that role, but like in a lame route. You know what I mean? It's a little bit different.
He's tried to take the cool like Mayweather route.
This is too lame now.
Doing too much, and his dad also doesn't do him any fucking favors. Bill Haney.
Well, here's the thing. I don't even think they care. And what his dad was saying was, well, Devin's like taking a stand against PEDs, and this is going to change things, and he's going to, I don't think so. I think people are still going to take PEDs. I mean, people might think, oh, you know what? I could get sued for this, or I don't think a lot of people may go to this extent, dude. Like, I really don't. So I don't think the Haneys really care about what people are saying about them.
No, but I also think this is just almost entirely the way they're going about it, because like Ryan Garcia, I mean, what he did was still fucked up, right? Now, granted, the actual fight we can pick apart, like, Devin Haney should have just been more ready for that left hook that he kept getting hit with over and over and over again. We can extrapolate on that, but like with Devin Haney in particular, or with Ryan Garcia in particular, rather, like he used PEDs. He showed up overweight. He was saying wild, like, I'm not going to come here and defend Ryan Garcia. He was saying wild shit leading up to the fight and wild shit after. Racist shit also, right? Like he was saying like a lot of anti this group and anti this group, like just wilding out on social media on top of all of this, which that has nothing to do with the lawsuit necessarily, but like, I'm not going to paint him as some sort of like victim here. He did what he did. With Devin Haney, he's in his right to sue, but it's entirely the way he's gone about it and entirely the way he's acted since this whole thing went down where he lost. He now he talked about mental distress in the lawsuit, or it's mental distress is referred to in a lawsuit. It's like that was tied to the fight. Why? Is it because of the loss and people making fun of you online, or was it just because you lost your O? Because he was so excited when the undefeated record was restored. Like the way he was posting on his story, he posted the photo of his box record with the O back. And it's like, dude, again, like he does have his O back because legally he should, because Ryan Garcia used PEDs. The fight has to be ruled a no contest, whatever. But we also all saw what happened. This wasn't one of those fights where it was very close and there was a knockdown. And it was a closer fight than people remember, but you get what I'm saying. Like this looked like a wipeout because he got knocked down multiple times. I think 3 times in this fight, or whatever. But yeah, so I think there's a bunch here. There's a lot here. It's super gray. I just think that Devin Haney, again, in his right to do this, but I hate the way he's gone about it completely. And, I think Jay, and we'll get to some comments here, and please leave comments on this, because this is not an easy one to sort of like, you need like some time to actually go through the lawsuit and whatever. And
which is pretty, like I tried to read it and it's there's a lot in there. And I saw a lot of people saying on Twitter that it might get thrown out. I don't know.
It's possible, but I don't look. I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so I'm not going to pretend that I know how this is going to go. But Jay leaves a comment. I'm going to get to Hustle Man next. Ryan is a cheater, but Haney is with. You mean Haney is a snake? Haney might also be a cheater too. I mean, look, this is probably a double negative situation too, where maybe both of these guys are probably just, in over their heads, so to speak. Hustle Man. All I'm gonna say is, if you're from the Bay and say you're this and that, we go and get back, not taking it to court. 1.5 for Ryan missing weight and got his O back. Haney's from Vegas now. He can't claim the Bay.
Yeah, you got to be cut from a different cloth to claim the Bay, and Haney's from the East Bay. So, that's a little bit different. Stick with Hustle Man though, because he's got another funny one.
All right, you're gonna have to explain this one to me.
Oh no, I don't. Yeah, Hustle Man. I don't explain that to us, but this one's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Haney's really 30-2. First loss was to Loma, if we're being honest. Very close fight. I always said I thought Haney got it done.
Yeah, I don't think he
but
lost the Loma fight. A lot of people did though.
I'm gonna go back and watch it. I've only seen it like 2 times. Okay, so he tries to.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Snack.
Kinda
We should probably say this for the audio audience, but what they're referring to is snack program. Is that what you're trying to say, or is it program? I'm so out of the loop on what the fuck is going on. He worked with Victor Conte, though, that I understand. Also, another element of this, Ryan Garcia banned from Undisputed now. They're removing him from the game.
So I thought that was lame, and that was the first thing that I said to Bryan when he sent it to me, and you said that you kind of see why, because of the PED thing. I think it's still lame because, like, I still don't love the roster on Undisputed. I don't love the roster. And you know me, Bryan, you know my favorite type of fighters, right?
Yeah.
I like Mexican boxers from Cali, and there's not a lot of them in this game.
Let me just read the post. Undisputed, this is from their Discord, it looks like, but as part of the full launch update on Undisputed, which is the forthcoming boxing game that's going to be released next week that I still need to pre-order.
Oh, you didn't go pre-order? I thought you were gonna go get it.
Because I'm trying to find the hard copy. And like it looks like digitals are the only thing available, and it's like, bro, like I still like
unless you want the Canelo one. Unless you want the Canelo
one. I
want
want the deluxe. It's funny because they removed people made the connection. Oh, they're removing Ryan Garcia from the game, but yet Tyson Fury is on the cover and he said some things, yada yada yada. So Ryan Garcia's character will no longer be playable in local, online, and prize fight game modes, and players won't be able to create new career mode saves with the character. Existing career mode saves using Ryan Garcia's character will be removed in the game's December 2024 update, giving players time to complete already created save games. It's a clunky way to write that last sentence, but I get the point. I wonder if that means if you're using Ryan Garcia, like using him as a main character, or if he's in your career mode at all, like if you're in the weight class, that they would also boot that out of there, because the latter would suck. If it's the former, then whatever. A little interesting. I also don't like, I'll say this. I don't know if this is like a contractual thing that he sort of breached, which is entirely possible because it's Ryan Garcia.
Was that in the video game contract? If you do PEDs, you're out the game. Like,
yeah, like
you know what I mean? Or is it also because of the controversy surrounding Ryan and everything that's going on outside of boxing? Like, I feel like everything with Ryan has been so chaotic for months. The things on social media and stuff like that. But I don't think they should take him out the video game just for that aspect. I mean, there's a lot of people that do PEDs that are probably are everywhere. You know what I mean? Like, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people doing PEDs that we don't even know about, athletes.
I think there's something here that we don't know. Because like games don't typically do this unless it's serious. And I don't know if it's tied to PEDs or something else, but like, you know, if it's PEDs, and I mean, why do this now? Why not do this like after this was announced? I don't know, but you got 2 months to play as or against Ryan Garcia, and then he's going to be out the game. They're supposedly going to add other boxers, not related to this, but they're supposedly going to add other people like as the game is out, whatever. We'll see. They need some Puerto Ricans in the game. That's all I'm going to say.
They need a better roster. Before we leave this topic, Bryan, do you have any final thoughts about the whole Devin Haney suing Ryan Garcia before we move away from there and get to some more comments?
No, not really. I think we should move on because we have other things to talk about that aren't law related that are still interesting. And Hustleman, to answer your question, are you doing post-fight live better BF versus Bivol? That is the plan. We are planning to do that. We absolutely are planning to do that. It'll be our first post-fight live in a little bit, but because we're not doing one this week, even though I'm excited about Nick Ball's fight, because I've become Nick Ball is one of my favorite fighters right now, but just stylistically, he is entertaining as hell. But we are planning on doing that.
Yeah, and I'm excited for it a little bit. not too excited because Beterbiev was coming back from that injury. You know what I mean? So that kind of changes things when we get into the betting aspect. We're going to save that for next week. What we're not going to save is this topic because I feel like it's a heavy week, Bryan, when it comes to these things because we're talking about things outside of boxing and not really fight styles. But Teofimo Lopez made some racist remarks against Terence Crawford and Gervonta Tank Davis. And this is not the first time. And I'm going to read a couple of quotes that I pulled up, and this is on talksport.com. This is essentially what Teofimo Lopez said. The WBO super lightweight champion called up both boxers last week and came under fire for his choice of words. This is word for word off this article. Teofimo Lopez said, quote, whichever monkey wants to get the banana. They say they are gorillas. I'm a lion. I eat them. And Bud Crawford ended up responding to the disgusting things that Teofimo Lopez said. And Bud said, quote, had me and Tank called him a racial slur, they would have been trying to cancel us, calling us racist. It would have been all over the news. The hatred that's within always shows. That's not something that's just come out. That's something that's been inside that man since he was a kid, end quote. So obviously Teofimo Lopez is trying to get a fight with he wants to fight with Bud. Let's be serious here. That would be the money fight. But this is the dumbest way to go about it. And really it kind of taints Teofimo's character. Because why are you saying this stuff? Why are you calling somebody a monkey? This is terrible. Bryan, this is not the first time this has happened, but what are your thoughts on Teofimo Lopez, who arguably is the best at 140? He has the star power, and he's calling people monkeys, and it's disgusting behavior from him to get a fight. And that's why we know he's doing it, to build up like this type of beef or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, like this is not it's not exactly the same as like Floyd Mayweather wearing Mexican colors and a Mexican sombrero. Like that's just more like that's more poking fun, being a heel, so to speak. But like Teofimo Lopez is not as it's not as crafty about it. He's just straight up being racist to try to get a fight. Um, him and Ryan Garcia should fight each other. Probably. We should have that instead as a relation.
That would be a huge money fight, I think. I think that's a great fight.
Yeah, I mean, look, you can get. I'm sure Teofimo Lopez, you can get a fight without saying racist shit. Just don't be racist, bro. Like, just like I don't understand. Like if you call black man, black woman, doesn't matter. If you call a black person a gorilla, you know what you're doing. Like we're old enough here to see what's going on. It's also not like it's not subtle either. Not that it should be, shouldn't be, whatever the case may be, but it's just bad. Don't do it. And ultimately, like the purpose of doing this is what you're trying to get a fight. Like just you can call them out regular. Maybe he's thinking that he's tried that or whatever. I don't know what the fuck goes in these dudes' minds. But if I'm Terence Crawford, I'm annoyed. And if I'm Terence Crawford, like honestly, if you're talking about the actual fight aspect of this, like I have no doubt that Terence Crawford would beat his ass in a fight, given what we've seen from both sides. And given that this would probably not even be at 154, this would probably be back down at 147 or something along those lines. But Teofimo Lopez, stop doing this shit. Like he's a repeat offender, you know, as it pertains to this stuff. And you know, this is not really. There's not a place in the sport for this. And also, if you're Tank as well, like, and if you're Terence Crawford, like these guys, I'm sure have dealt with this in their careers from. I'm not sure about other fighters, but definitely from fans, because fans be just saying reckless shit on social media. If they wanna, if this gets Teofimo a fight with either of them, then be careful what you wish for, because I don't think he beats either guy, honestly.
I think this is worse than just as bad as Ryan taking PEDs. This is terrible. And I'm going to make a comparison, and you're going to probably roll your eyes. But Erica Mena got fired off of this for Love and Hip Hop. She called Spice the Jamaican artist, a monkey,
I actually
and she
heard
got
about this.
canned.
Yeah.
She got canned from the reality show, which was the right move. This is deeper. Like, these are slurs that people have used for generations to degrade somebody.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be happening because you want to get a fight. Like, you look
Right.
lame doing that. If I'm Bud Crawford, I'm pound for pound. I'm not giving you that fight, because what are you doing? Like, how are you trying to get that fight? And I like Teofimo Lopez, but this makes me dislike him.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And for me, it's like, if I'm Bud, I don't want to give him the fight. If I'm Tank, I don't want to give him the fight, because let's be serious here. Bud and Tank are bigger grabs when it comes to people watching them in a pay-per-view bout.
Yeah.
Right? For them, it's like, people are going to watch us. But for Teo, it would be him also getting a little bit more shine. Teo is a superstar in the sport, but not to the level of Bud and Tank, I don't think.
He'd be the B-side either fight. Yeah.
Exactly. And this is not the way to do it. It's disgusting behavior. And I want to go to this comment from Hustleman, because I think this is really important. As big as Teo is, he's supposed to be setting an example for the younger generation following the sport. His words don't match his actions. It's true. He's supposed to be setting an example, and this is a terrible example. Like, you can't go around making racial slurs thinking you're going to get a big ass fight and get a payday. It doesn't work that way. If I'm Bud, I'm Tank, I'm not even giving this guy the time of day. And I like the way Bud handled it, because he just spoke his mind and he kind of put him in his place. And there's no room for this in this sport. If Erica Mena can get fired off Love and Hip Hop, which, by the way, she had the best storyline. Okay? She had the best storyline on the show. I don't think Teo's moving in the right way. And to be honest, fans can get really disgusting, especially when it's a Latino fighter and a black fighter. Let's be serious.
Yeah.
Like, fans can get really disgusting on Twitter, on YouTube, and you see the comments all the time. I just don't think there's a place for that in boxing.
Going back to Mayweather wearing the Mexican sombrero and fighting, Juan Manuel Marquez and Canelo, and
yeah. And it's gross, and it's unfortunate, because I do like Teo, but this is the type of stuff you don't want to see. So for me, I agree with you. If he was to fight Bud or Tank, I would take Bud and Tank over Teo, but I don't even think this fight's going to happen at this point, Bryan.
Me neither. And remember, we've reacted to this earlier, and we're actually going to transition to Tank in a little bit. So if you do have comments on this, feel free. But yeah, like we talked about this before, where months ago, I'm forgetting exactly when, but Teofimo Lopez, his deal with Top Rank was seemingly coming up, and he was saying, like, hey, if they want to keep promoting the black fighters, and it is what it is. I'm paraphrasing, but that's exactly, or not exactly what he was saying in terms of like word for word, but that's basically what the messaging was. And people took exception to that, because it was like, wait, what is he talking about? Or like, who is he, referred to, and why is he wording it in this way, and things of that nature. And for me, it's like, if this is what we're hearing publicly, it may be deeper than that privately. That's usually how this goes. So that's pretty worrisome. But ultimately, on the fight end of this, I don't think this is going to get him any closer to a fight with either guy. But if it does happen, again, be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think if he's saying this out loud publicly, think about what he's saying behind closed doors.
Yeah.
Probably some disgusting stuff. So for me, it gives him the villain role, I think. Because right now, after him saying that, I don't want to root for a guy like Teo.
Yeah,
if that's not who it is, then apologize and be like, "Yo, I'm just trying to sell the fight."
Yeah, that's the other thing. That's the other thing. Like, boxing has a very diverse audience, and a lot of people who watch boxing and consume boxing are black. If you're black and you're a Teofimo Lopez fan, is this going to make you not a fan? Yeah, probably. This is going to make you because, like, if Teofimo Lopez said this about really any other group, that specific group would be like, yeah, fuck this guy. You know what I mean? If you're and Teofimo Lopez is somebody who, like, he's popular within the sport. Granted, he seemingly only does theaters these days, which is interesting, but we could talk about that.
Keep that up, and you're going to continue to do theaters.
Yeah. Just don't be doing this shit. There's a way to try to get a fight without being racist. There's a way to try to get a fight and just like talking shit. Just like, regular ass, like just smack talk or business or whatever you have to do behind closed doors to get that done. But doing this is not. It's not it.
No, let's get to some comments because I think there's some good ones here. We'll go over to Jay, who said, boxers need to learn to respect others. So many fighters are acting stupid, and I think they lost the opportunity to get sponsors. Let's go over to Mark. This is an interesting one. Bud said he beat the burritos out of Jose Benavidez Jr. Terrible. I love a good burrito, but this is different. You know what I mean? I do like a burrito. I don't like it when it has rice in it.
You're
but
such
there's
a
spot
West
in the
Coaster.
bay. No. What do you mean? Do you not like burritos?
No, that wasn't my first thought. I do like burritos, but
I don't like it when there's rice in it.
Supposedly the West Coast does it a lot better than we do on the East Coast. But y'all, like way closer proximity to Mexico. You know what I mean? Like I think y'all definitely have better Mexican food than we do, for sure.
Especially, but at the same time, it's like I think there's a few good spots in the Bay where they don't. There's just one like legendary spot, Hustleman, if you probably know it. They don't put the rice in the burrito, and there's a big lineup. Anyways, we're not gonna get into that.
You don't like rice in a burrito, huh?
No, I don't dig that. What? I'm more of a taco type of girl, burrito tacos, stuff like that. Which, by the way, Cali does it the best. I'm not a big Tex-Mex girl. I like the authentic stuff.
But to Mark's comment about Bud saying he'd beat the burritos out of Jose Benavidez Jr. Yeah, that's not great either. That's a form of smack talk that he's trying to like get creative with that, could sound clunky. I probably wouldn't do that either, Bud. But again, these guys are different. They're boxers. Like they're going to have these type of moments, which is unfortunate. But like in this sport, because think about it, if Teofimo Lopez was a fucking basketball player, if he was a quarterback, you know what I mean? Like this would be a lot more high profile, whatever the case may be. But since he's a boxer, people just kind of chalk it up to the game. Like people in terms of mainstream media will just chalk it up to the game and be like, that this is how they act in the sport. And honestly, we have a history in this sport of race and racism selling. So there's
sometimes that they sell fights like that, right? Like, come on, they sell fights like that. That's what promoters do. I do want to say one thing though.
Didn't we just have one? I want to say not too long ago. I gotta think about it a little bit more. But like, listen, there's an element of this every time Jake Paul fights a black fighter, right? Or whenever there's like a Mexican fighter versus a black fighter, the promotion of it could get nasty amongst the fan bases, depending on who it is, especially if it's two guys that are like high profile or whatever the case may be. So yeah, I don't think racism has a place in boxing or frankly any sport or anywhere.
No.
And that's just where I'm at with it. Hustleman also says Oakland, by the way, has the best taco trucks.
Very good taco trucks. The spot that I'm talking about, I'm gonna sound like a gringo. It's I'm gonna sound like a gringo right now, but it's like what is it called?
Well, it's fine. You're not Latino. Even though we've gotten questions. It's probably the hoop earrings.
Nobody knows what I am.
It's the earrings. We've gotten questions like, "Oh, is Shantelle Mexican? Is she Dominican?" Like people want you to be a Latina so bad, yo.
I know. I was gonna say, going back quickly, like before I get out of topic here, because I'm gonna start talking about tacos and then we'll go on forever. So the burrito comment that Mark said, that Bud said, there's a difference between calling a black person a monkey. There's a history behind that word. Like it goes very deep.
I know what you're saying. Yeah.
So it's totally different. I'm not saying one's more hurtful
You're not excusing
than the other.
This one either.
No, this is lame, right?
You're saying the other one cuts deeper.
It does, because there's a very big history behind it. Yeah. And like if someone called me a burrito, like I wouldn't be offended. I'd be like, yeah, I like them without rice. La Tequera is the place in San Francisco, and it's dope. Like if you're in the Bay and you've never been there, you have to go there because they have some of the best burritos. Before we go on to the next topic, because we still got more, you guys.
Yeah. Fun topic too, because these two have been kind of heavy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, they have been really heavy, but we were gonna have to get into it. Inouye versus Cool Boy Steph. Yeah, there was some racial stuff going on there as well.
Not from what I remember, not between the fighters though.
No, not at all.
I remember that being very respectful, but in turn and how it was promoted. I don't think, if I recall correctly, I don't think that was part of the stoking the flames, so to speak. I don't think that was part of it. I think it was just the fans, because there were there were a lot of black people being like, "Oh, in a way, is Asian, get the fuck out of here. He's not going to beat Stephen Fulton." And then you had people on the other side saying similar things, who were Asian, who were Japanese. But yeah,
Japanese people are mad nice too. And by the way, Asian athletes, they are legit. Like, you ever seen figure skating during the Olympics? They're the best. It's my favorite,
I
like,
don't
Winter
watch a ton of
Olympics.
figure skating. No.
No, it's gangster. You know what I mean? Because you're
Okay.
like on a blade and you're going fast and you're doing all, like, you got to have crazy core. I think figure skating is like G shit. Anyways, that's the point.
Japanese baseball league, which the name is escaping me, but they're really good too. They fucking and the World Baseball Classic, Japan's team is always stacked.
Yeah. Another thing, Canelo in a way on the same card, they debunked that.
Yeah. Salvador Rodriguez from ESPN was like, we're probably not going to see Canelo again until May, which makes sense because he just fights in May and September for the most part. Mark's saying that Fulton said Inoue is hype because he's Japanese. I don't remember that, actually. If you could tell me where the story was that aggregated that correctly, because I'm sure it wasn't reported on much, let me know. But
I hate when anyone says that there's hype on Inoue. Like, what are you talking about? A lot of people say this though, and I'm just like, have you seen his fights? Like, he's cleaning out divisions. So I mean, that if he said that, that is racist, but there's no room for that in this sport, and unfortunately, it happens often. It's the way it's marketed sometimes. Even a Mexican versus an American, like, it's like nationalities get, Mexico versus Puerto Rico, like that's one of the greatest rivalries too. So it definitely happens. Let's move on though, Bryan, to the
you
next
remember when
subject.
real quick, you remember when
Yeah.
Rod Salka fought, I think it was Francisco Vargas, and he had like the build a wall trunks, and then he got his ass beat.
Yeah.
This is in 2018. This is like peak Trump era.
Yeah. Make America great red hat era.
Yeah. Just, ugh.
Oh,
actually, I think Trevor McCumbee had a MAGA hat before the Caleb Plant fight. Let me hold on. I'm pretty sure he did. Like, I'm pretty sure he was wearing it at like the presser or something like that. Yeah. Okay, I'm seeing it right here. I don't think it was a parody one.
Yeah.
Either. Like, because like there's a bunch of parody MAGA hat. Yeah, I'm seeing it right here. So boxing scene has a photo, just as Make America Great Again. Like, he has this straight up hat, Trevor McCumbee. But I mean, look at him. You know what I mean? I wasn't too surprised, for being honest.
Off topic before we get into the next topic. There was a dude driving around with a Make America Great hat in his whip on the dash. And I was like, dude, we're in Canada. Like, take that off. Like, it makes no sense. It makes no sense why you got that on your whip. Anyways.
We'll save the election thoughts for another show. But yes. I have plenty. That's what I'll say.
We could have a political podcast if we wanted to. But a lot of people
don't want to.
No, not at all. It'd be too much controversy. Some controversy that has come up because of an opponent that was picked. Gervonta Tank Davis is set to fight Lamont Roach in December in Houston. And there's lots of talk about this, Bryan, because he could have picked anybody at 135. Lamont Roach is moving up for this fight. And there's controversy in the sense that people are wondering why Tank is picking Roach when he could have picked someone else. What are your thoughts on this? I think this is actually a good fight. It doesn't have the same type of aura as a Tank and Loma would have. But what are your thoughts on this? And we are going to get into his resume after. So stick with us.
Yeah, we're going to do some of that too. God, it's going to be over an hour. Gervonta Davis basically confirmed this also on his Instagram. He said December, Houston. And Lamont Roach has been the long rumored contender. Look, I think this is another sort of Frank Martin-ish type of fight where he's fighting a dude who has earned a big opportunity, who is not undefeated in this case. Frank Martin was, although he probably shouldn't have been. But Lamont Roach Jr. has a bit of a resume. He's on a run. His only loss is to Jamel Herring, and he did beat Hector Luis Garcia, a common opponent between the two. I think the only high-profile common opponent between the two. But I think people are going to look at this and be like, all right, Tank again is not fighting one of the elite guys that you want to see him fight against. He's fighting another kind of B-level fighter who is really, really good, but you want to see Tank against the best of the best. And there is on his resume, he's been in our lives for a very long time. He's been in our lives as a championship level fighter for several years now. And there's just not a ton of like the best of the best type of fights really on a lot of guys' resumes now. And this is why, you know, we were talking about Anthony Joshua's resume and why people give him a lot of credit is because he's fought a lot of the top or top-ish guys in the heavyweight division. You know, there's no Tyson Fury on the resume yet, but I feel like, you know, a lot of people would blame the other party for that one. But Tyson Fury has also fought a lot of top guys who are heavyweights, like Usyk, like Deontay Wilder, etc. Like Tank doesn't have a lot of that, and it feels like there have been opportunities to have that. And I think it's an interesting discussion because this feels like another fight where it's like, all right, this is another fight that's like a build up to like a potentially bigger one. And this is why the Ryan Garcia one felt like a good change of pace. But if we're being honest, and I was even saying this at the time, like Tank should win this fight. We're kind of giving Ryan Garcia a chance just because, like, you know, what if and his quickness, things of that nature. But Tank was the better dude. And we kind of saw that immediately, especially like after round one ended, rather.
Yeah, and I think the confusing part for me is why this fight is on pay-per-view. I get it. Tank does pay-per-view numbers. But I think if the name was bigger, if he was fighting a Loma, I get the pay-per-view for that. If he was going to do a fight with Isaac Cruz again, I could see why you'd want to see a pay-per-view for that. Lamont Roach, and this is nothing against him. I think this is actually a good fight. I think he's a tricky fighter. I think he's very skilled. I also think he has a chin that's not sus. So I actually think this is a good fight, but Tank should win this fight. It's just like, why is it on pay-per-view though? You know, like, I don't know. If it was free, I think people would eat it up. Yeah.
But he's one of the only pay-per-view guys.
But really, it's one of the arguments where I'm like, I don't think every fight should be on pay-per-view. Like, and it's kind of giving the Canelo blueprint right now, where Canelo is like picking fighters like, you know, Edgar Berlanga and Jaime Munguia, good fights, young fighters, and they're on pay-per-view. But obviously we want to see Canelo fight David Benavidez. Now, the one thing I will say about Tank is that Loma is the one. Remember, we were hearing that there was a fight that was supposed to take place in November, and both camps were in negotiations, Loma and Tank. And then Loma decided that he was going to take some time off. That's not Tank's fault.
Yep, that's all Loma.
Yeah, so let's just say if there were real negotiations happening, and this was reported that there was, that's not on Tank, because that would be a massive fight. Now, he could have fought somebody else in this division, and we could take a look at some names here in that weight class. I believe Shakur Stevenson is dealing with an injury. He had to pull out of his fight.
He was supposed to fight against Joe Cordina, I believe, next week. I think he was going to be on that Better Be a Bevo card, I think.
Yeah, you know, and there's other names that you could definitely look at in this division. But I think the one that we really want to see is Tank fighting a guy like Loma, Tank fighting a guy like Shakur. Navarrete had moved up, didn't look the best at 135. There are names there, though, that I think are more interesting, but Lamont Roach is coming up. As for Tank's resume, I give Tank some credit on his resume. And I know a lot of people are like, but he's not fighting any like real champions, this and that. I don't care if Leo Santa Cruz moved up. Leo Santa Cruz was that dude. And I thought until he got knocked out, I thought Leo fought pretty decently. Mario Barrios, that's when Tank moved up to 140. And whether you like him or not, like, this guy was a former champ, right? Isaac Cruz, look at all the hype on Isaac Cruz until he recently lost. A lot of hype on Isaac Cruz. And they gave him a lot of credit because that fight went the distance. Of course, something happened with Tank's hand in that fight. But nonetheless, that was a young fighter in Pitbull Cruz that was a dangerous fight because he had power. And Tank ended up going the distance, but he still got it done. Rolly, Tank has said that I believe Rolly's one of the hardest punchers he's ever fought. Right? Rolly hadn't been boxing for a long time, but once again, the power aspect. He ends up fighting Ryan Garcia. And at the time I was like, yo, this is kind of a 50-50 fight. Like I was on the post with you, Bryan, and I was like, this is a good fight because Ryan has the power and the speed. Of course, he didn't really have the accolades at that point, but still a young fighter at the same time that has the capability. And there was a lot of hype on Ryan as well during that time. And Frank Martin, I think, is a good fight. And we can go back and we can be like, well, Gamboa was old. That's not his fault. You know what I mean? It's not Tank's fault that Gamboa was old. I think people want the bigger names, and I totally get that. But if there were real negotiations happening with him and Loma, and that was reported, and Loma's like, yo, I got to take some time off, that's not on Tank, dude. So Tank, this is a stay busy fight for Tank, if that's how you want to call it. And I'm not taking anything away from Lamont Roach because I think this is actually a pretty good fight. But if this means that we get Tank and Loma sometime in the spring next year, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
I'm not counting on that, but we'll see. If Tank wins this fight, this won't happen in all likelihood. But if Tank wins this fight and retires, would you feel like good with his resume?
No.
So I don't think you can make that argument.
I wouldn't feel good with his resume because I think there needs to be that one fight that cements it because there's too many questions. It's kind of like this. It's kind of like when LeBron won those chips with the Miami Heat. We know how you feel about the Miami Heat. Everyone was saying, well, he did it with Wade and Bosch. And
but if he retired then and didn't get the Cleveland
didn't get the Cleveland one, that's kind of like stained, where you're kind of like, oh, I don't know. But he got that one in Cleveland, even though Kyrie and Kevin Love were there. This is not a basketball podcast. But he got it done in Cleveland.
Don't.
No. Let me do that. Okay, let me do that. Anyways.
You win a title with help. Everyone has help.
Everyone has help, but I mean, at least acknowledge it. At least acknowledge that Kyrie dropped 40 twice in that series.
Let's not do this.
Okay, exactly. This is not the time. We didn't even get into Devontae Adams.
Look, I think Lamont Roach is one of the best in his weight class. The problem is his weight class is super featherweight, not lightweight. So this is another example that is a strike against him. And I think Lamont Roach is very good. Like I think he's as accomplished leading up to this fight as Frank Martin was, probably more so actually, because he actually won a world title against a really good fighter in Hector Luis Garcia. And Hector Luis Garcia, who was finding success against Tank.
That was a good fight before his eye messed up. Like that was a solid fight. And I don't care what anybody says. Hector Luis Garcia is a good fighter, dude.
Hector's good, man. Hector's good. I think Hector's one of the more legit names on Tank's resume, which, people would say like, oh, that means he doesn't have a great resume. But just going back to it, like, all right, Lamont Roach, okay, it's another guy coming up, whatever. Frank Martin, you could say that was before Frank Martin was ready, type of thing. Like people would say that. I would also say Frank Martin, who's sneakily like almost 30 years old.
Frank needed that fight.
He kind of like, it was kind of like a now or never thing. But one of the better guys in the weight class, but also coming off what we all thought should have been a loss in the previous fight. So is that a cherry pick? I don't know if I'd go that far, but it was strategic, and Frank Martin probably also was going to get that opportunity anyway, regardless. Ryan Garcia, hats off. Also, though, and you pointed this out because you didn't love this, there was a weight clause, there was a rehydration clause. Ryan Garcia said he felt drained. There was some craftiness there, and he ends up stopping Ryan Garcia. If that fight took place at 140, I'm sure it'd probably be a different story, but Tank insists that he doesn't feel comfortable in that weight class, even though I think he would probably beat everybody at 140. But that's another thing.
Well, quickly, I just want to say a lot of people are like, well, he's been at 135 for such a long time. There's weight classes for a reason.
You don't have to move up if you don't.
No, you don't
feel comfortable. But if you're draining, if you're being accused of draining somebody, then I think people are going to hold that up as a sort of counter anyway.
It's one of those situations going back to if Tank retired today, would I be okay with his resume? I still think he's the best lightweight in the world. Still think he's one of the most entertaining boxers in the world. He's on the pound for pound list for me. He's knocking everyone out. And I'll say one thing, and I made this comparison with Bryan off air. Before Bud took care of Spence, everyone talked about his resume and how his resume wasn't as elite as Spence's. And look what happened to Spence in the ring against Bud Crawford. Got annihilated, got dominated, right? And now people aren't even talking about Spence, which is like, I don't think that's right because he was one of the best at 147.
Yeah.
But for Tank, people look at his resume and they're like, oh my God, there's questions. Like he wouldn't be able to go toe to toe with, Shakur or Loma, or if he moved up to 140, like, I don't think he's that good. No, Tank is that good. Put him in a situation where he is fighting a big name like that, and we'll see. But just remember, this is the same narrative that they had about Bud, the exact same narrative going into that fight with Spence. And I think that it's kind of the same for Tank because they're saying he doesn't have the names on the resume. But guess what? He's stopping and knocking out pretty much everybody. So it's similar in that sense because when Bud moved up to 147, he was stopping everybody. So I think there's a little bit of similarities there for sure.
So before Ryan Garcia, you have Hector Luis Garcia, who we just told you, like, we both think he's really good. Another champion moving up from 130, similar to Lamont Roach was, but also really good. Like, I think Lamont Roach is a really good fighter. And I think Lamont Roach actually might have some early success in this fight because guys tend to do that when they're skilled enough in Tank fights before Tank ends up figuring them out. Also not sure he's going to have the power to keep Tank off of him once Tank gets going. Rolly Romero, another young fighter, but you are one of the people who thought, and there was a judge who thought the same thing. You thought Rolly was in lead at the time he got stopped. And I thought Rolly was actually fighting well and we saw his potential. And it just, like, whatever's happened to his career since has been what's happened to his career since. But that was an exciting fight. Rolly wasn't, I don't remember how he was perceived going into that, but I remember that being interesting. And then Isaac Cruz, obviously before that, like, Isaac Cruz was actually the replacement for Rolly the first time because Rolly was supposed to get that fight. And then Isaac Cruz ends up having the performance that makes a lot of people think that he's better than he was because Tank basically beat him while injured by a narrow decision. And we've seen since that Isaac Cruz, people have called for a rematch for this, myself included at one point, but I think Tank beats him worse in a rematch, especially considering what we've seen from Isaac Cruz since.
Yeah, I don't think that match even happens. I think at 140, there's better fights to make. Tank and Teofimo Lopez. Teofimo's going as far as making racial slurs to get that fight done.
Let me quickly go through the rest of the names.
Yeah.
Just so that we can
Devin Haney
on this. The rest of the names that Gervonta Davis has fought. So Mario Barrios before this, that was 140 fight. Leo Santa Cruz, who came up in weight, who we mentioned. And I think Santa Cruz is very good too. He main evented the first card that I ever covered
Leo Santa Cruz is a former champ. Yeah, he wasn't a champ at the weight class that he fought Tank, but Leo is one of those dudes that has accolades.
By the way, I thought Leo Santa Cruz was winning that fight when he got popped too.
It just can you sustain Tank's power at the same time, right? Like, you can box well and you can have skill, but if Tank is accurate, he's not going to throw that much, but he's accurate and he's got that power. So can you take that power? And that's still one of the best knockouts of all time, I think.
So I don't think this run of opponents is as bad as some of the Tank haters think. But it's also like there is a little element of like there's something missing there. Like, Isaac Cruz is good, Rolly Romero is good. Probably better before that fight than he has been since. Hector Luis Garcia, like, these are all good to real good, like, solid fighters. Ryan Garcia has the star power. There's just some, like, you want like a Shakur or a Lomachenko type of fight, like an elite. I don't think any of these guys that he fought there was elite necessarily, but honestly, we haven't gotten a ton of like elite versus elite fights anyway. This is why next week is such a rarity. And then before that, the run of opponents is like, Yuriokis Gamboa, who already had 2 losses at that point, Ricardo Nunez, Hugo Ruiz. Like, you go through the names, it's mostly underwhelming, except for Jose Pedraza, who he had to beat to get his first title. And Jose Pedraza at that time was a champion, a super featherweight, top 5 in his weight class, undefeated, and he went on to have a really good career after, even though he lost his fight by a devastating knockout. That was another fight that I covered, and that Tank has ridiculous power, especially in person. Miss Mona left a couple comments here about the weight, saying that Lamont Roach has fought at 135 and 140 for over half of his fights. I don't think that's the case, because just a quick scan through BoxRec, he hasn't fought over 130 since 2017, which would be a long time. There are some examples here of him fighting above the weight limit, but for the most part, like he's been at 130 for the most part of his career. But does also note that he will rehydrate to like 155 or so. Maybe that could be true, but I mean, he only has 10 knockouts in his career, and Tank also, we've seen Tank get popped, and he has a chin. So I don't know if the power that Lamont Roach is going to present is going to be an issue. So
yeah, and I don't think that's going to be his game plan, right? Like Lamont Roach is skilled, and I think he has a pretty decent chin against Tank. I don't know, but I actually think this is a good fight. Like I'm happy for Lamont Roach, because I think this is going to be pretty entertaining, pay-per-view worthy. I don't know. But I mean, that, like you said, that's how it takes.
Feature. David Benavidez on the co-feature
so.
for this? Okay.
Yeah, I believe so. So hopefully the card is going to be dope. But nonetheless, let's get to some comments, Brian, before we get up and out of here.
Height and reach advantage for Lamont Roach, by the way, also slightly. But I mean, against Tank, that hasn't quite mattered. Because he's not a tall dude. But he doesn't get, we've said this, he doesn't get enough credit for his ring IQ, his boxing ability, which is why we want to see him in there with another elite fighter. And really, it's just Lomachenko, Shakur Stevenson, I think right now are the guys you want to see the most. I would even, like, if Tank fought Devin Haney would not do this. But if Tank fought Devin Haney, like, that would be entertaining regardless of where the weight class.
They would have to do it at 140 though, which I think would be okay, but Tank would have to want to come up. I don't think Devin Haney wants that fight, yo.
Tank would be fine. Tank would be just fine with Devin Haney's power.
I don't think Devin Haney wants that fight right now. You know what I'm saying? He needs to have that rematch with Ryan Garcia after he is trying to sue him.
William Zepeda is another lightweight who's undefeated, looking for a big fight. Who I don't know what the perception will be of that. But
that's a good fight.
William Zepeda this literally just got announced. He's fighting Tevin Farmer next month. Tevin Farmer, who I am one of those people who thought he probably should have gotten a better nod, a better decision against Raymond Murataya.
Yes.
But in the end kind of tired out. So I kind of see why Murataya got the decision. But this is going to be an interesting test to see where William Zepeda is at, but I think he's another name that we should probably throw in Tank mix, because he's one of the best lightweights in the world. And if he beats Tevin Farmer soundly, like, yeah, I'd be curious to see what he could do against Tank, assuming we can't get Shakur or Lomachenko.
Yeah, I actually think that's a really, really good fight. Hustle Man, Roach is a good, solid fighter, but not enough to beat Tank. Yeah. Let us know who you're going to be taking in that fight. It's set for December 14th, if I'm not mistaken, in Houston. Let's go over to Mark. Tank had one fight at 126. Roach is skilled, but not enough power or skill for Tank. I agree. So this is a fight where I think consensus, a lot of people are going to be taking Tank for this fight, and they're not looking at it as Roach being one of those guys that can upset him. But it's boxing. Anything can happen. But I would say it's a stay busy fight. And hopefully we'll get Tank and Loma or Shakur, or even, just like you said, William Zepeda for sure. This is an interesting one. I don't think this happens, though. Andy Cruz. Ooh, that's a good fight.
So along those lines, how good was Rolly, you think, leading up to this fight? Or I guess a better way to ask this is Keyshawn Davis now better than Rolly was prior to fighting Gervonta Davis?
Yes. Like, I think
if Tank fights, they're not going to do this. They're not going to do this because I think we're
it's too risky, dude. It's too risky.
But like if it came across and it's like, oh, he's going to fight Keyshawn Davis in 2025, I would be very intrigued. I still think Tank would win that fight, but I'd be more intrigued than if he were to fight most of these other dudes. I'm looking for odds on Gervonta Davis because I feel like he's going to be a big favorite. I'm not seeing anything yet. I'll report
So,
back.
so do you know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of like a Duran Ennis fighting a Bud. Like it's just not going to happen.
Mm.
Like that's the risk for it. Right. So I don't know. I still would take Tank in that fight. Keyshawn is very talented. We've seen some holes in Keyshawn's fighting, but he's gotten better.
He
But
fights next month too.
nonetheless, I love Andy Cruz though. I love Andy Cruz. I don't think he gets that shot against Tank, but he's going to be a problem in the division for sure. Let's go over to
Keyshawn Davis has Gustavo Lemos next month in a card that I think
Lemos is a good fight, dude.
Yeah, I think Troy Isley, who Top Rank is also pushing in that middleweight weight class. That honestly, like Troy Isley could probably win a title soon in that weight class. That weight class is not great, and I think Troy Isley is actually one of the more skilled dudes in there. So let's see, we got comments on
this is my favorite comment so far. Why the hell is Boots fighting Karen again? Ain't nobody trying to see that.
The IBF is the answer. Karen went on a little run after their fight. They made him the mandatory, and I think Bam Rodriguez is on this card.
He is, yeah. Bam is fighting on that card, which is interesting because we're not going to get him in El Gallo anymore.
That card is like I'm
going to watch it. I'm going to watch it. Like I think December has some good fights.
Yeah. Do y'all want a post-fight show for that? Because I
don't want a post-fight show for that.
Yeah, I want to ask the audience. Like, I don't want to do a Boots Karen.
I'm good on that
post-fight show necessarily. I'll do it if the people want it. Look, whatever the people want, I'll do.
We should do Tank and Lamont Roach though. We should do Tank and Lamont Roach. Yeah, do you want that post-fight show? I feel like
any Tank fight, we're trying to do one. We're absolutely doing one for Better BF, Bivol. And then after that, I'm not. We'll see about Regis Prograis, Jack Catterall.
I think we should do one for that.
Yeah, if we're able to.
Yeah.
That's going to be UK time. That's coming up. That's the sneaky good fight that's going to be at the end of the month. They got pushed back. It's supposed to be in August.
Please, Regis, don't let me down. That's all I'm going to say. If Regis lets me down this fight, I'm going to be a little bit upset. I think he's got a lot to prove. To the haters and doubters, a chip on his shoulder, I feel like. Bryan, any final thoughts before we get up and out of here?
Yeah, I think if we're power ranking who we want to see Tank fight the most, we should actually do a little top 5 here.
Right. Do your thing.
We should actually do a little top 5 here. I would say I want to see Shakur the most. Lomachenko second. I actually legitimately think, and even though I would say William Zepeda is more worthy if he can beat Tevin Farmer, I want to see Keyshawn Davis. And the third most out of everybody here, if we're using, and Ring Magazine has its issues, but let's say if we're using these rankings as a bar, he's 7th right now. And I think he's better than that in the weight class because he's behind Raymond Murataya, and I think he's better than Murataya. I think that's a fight Top Rank should make, though. Like that should be the next step for Keyshawn Davis, and the winner could fight for the WBO because it's Top Rank and they'll fight for the WBO. 4th to me is Andy Cruz. I don't think he's good. I'm ranking in terms on intrigue.
Okay.
Of Tank's next fights. I'm not saying he's already the 4th best lightweight in the world, but if Tank versus Andy Cruz got announced, I would be more intrigued than if it was Tank versus, with all due respect, Raymond Murataya, or some of these other dudes. And I do
think Murataya. Okay, so I have a love and hate relationship with Murataya because I feel like I wanted to see so much more from him, and there was so much hype on him, and I feel like he hasn't lived up to it. But that's a fight I wouldn't be mad about. So I love Andy Cruz and Tank. I don't see it happening, but I love the intrigue because that's a fight that I think Andy Cruz could win.
Yeah.
I think that's a fight Andy Cruz could win, to be real with you. Like, that's how high I am on Andy Cruz.
I want to see Keyshawn Davis win his next fight Raymond Murataya, and the winner of that could fight Dennis Berancek for the WBO, and then we could start talking about super fights with Tank.
All right, so my Tank list for intrigue, and this is intrigue only. Number 1 is him and Lomachenko. I still think that's arguably one of the best fights that we could get, because Loma seems to be in rare form as well. And I think that is the fight to make. I think that's a blockbuster fight, pay-per-view fight. Number 2, Shakur Stevenson. Number 3, if we're not talking weight classes, Devin Haney. Number 4, Teofimo Lopez. And number 5, give me a rematch. And like the weight thing is an issue, but I want to see a rematch with him and Ryan Garcia without the weight train. And
yeah,
if we're taking, you were thinking more weight class, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was thinking like if we're talking intrigue, that's what I'm thinking. So, but yours is more likely. But if we're talking like weight class and all that, I actually love the William Zepeda fight. I think William Zepeda needs a fight like that.
He'll come to fucking fight, man.
Yeah. And I would probably place Andy Cruz at number 5. I also like him and Raymond Muirtaya. I hate to say it, but I think that's a good fight. I think Tank wins that fight.
Yeah, but I think Muirtaya is another. Like, I don't think I think Frank Martin could beat Raymond Muirtaya. I think Lamont Roach could probably beat Raymond Muirtaya, actually.
Yeah.
Like, I just like, I've seen him struggle multiple fights that I don't feel like he should have struggled against. And I hold Tevin Farmer in high regard. Like, I think Tevin Farmer is great, but he's also like, he took a long layoff. So like, I don't know if he'll get back to like where he was basically pre Jojo Diaz again, where he looked like one of the most skilled boxers in these lighter weight classes. But at the same time, like, you know, we'll see how he pushes William Zepeda, and like, he's trying to get into this lightweight mix also. And if William Zepeda struggles in that fight, because Tevin Farmer is a tough fighter to look good against because he is stylistically, like, if Tevin Farmer, and I might sprinkle a little something on this because I bet on him to beat Raymond Muirtaya, I might look at Tevin Farmer to win by decision or even by split or majority decision.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I think I might place. I'm gonna rock with you because I want Raymond Muirtaya to live up to the hype. I really like him as a fighter, but Tevin Farmer is a really tough fight, and Raymond has disappointed me.
Yeah, and you know what's gonna happen is if Tevin Farmer wins that fight,
he's not gonna win it on the cards though.
No, let's say he does. Then we're finally going to get Tank versus Tevin Farmer, which should have happened in like 2016 because they were talking shit, hating each other like publicly and all these things. And that fight should have got made. And there were actually people that thought Tevin Farmer would have outboxed Tank at the time because Tank was so young. Listen, it would be totally like just completely boxing for that to happen. But I'll tell you what, if Tevin beats William Zepeda, if he scores that upset, I think that Amazon and PBC they're going to run to make that fight because it's like, oh wait, we don't have to put him in against one of the like more dangerous sort of quote unquote opponents. We could actually sell this grudge match that should have happened a long ass time ago. It'd be so boxing to be late to that.
Yeah, for sure. By the way, let's get to 2 more comments, Brian. Let's get up and out of here because this has been more than an hour show.
Our longest show ever, I think. This is definitely our longest show ever.
Good friend of the show, Hustle Man. Tank, who we would like for Tank would be Loma, Shakur, Devin, Teo, in a way at 130 or 128 catch weight. I still think that's a dream fight. I don't think that happens. I think we get, I think in a way is going to cap out at 126. I don't know if he ever moves up to 130, but there's weight classes for a reason.
If he gets to 130, I don't know where Tank is going to be at that point either. I don't see Tank hanging around like that. I feel like he'll get out relatively early. That's just a guess.
Yeah, that's what I think as well. But I think he still needs that one fight where people don't question his resume.
Preferably both Shakur and Loma.
I think he has a chance to beat both of them. Tough fights though. Toughest fights. And if he has one of those guys on his resume, I think he's set. You know what I mean? He gets the win and then we stop talking, people start talking smack because I still think Tank is the best lightweight in the world. By the way, if you like the content, hit that like and subscribe button. If you have already, we do appreciate you. Also, you can find us on the audio side. And if you got a couple of minutes, leave a rate and review. Give us a 5-star because, why not? And Brian, I always let you have the last word. So I'll let you have the last words again, man.
We'll see y'all next week for the Dmitry Bivol, Artur Beterbiev preview. Card is fun. There's a couple other interesting fights in there. And if we have time, we will look at the middleweight division because there is a big consequential fight in that weight class featuring John Abek, who's going to fight tomorrow. And he's a big favorite, but
Friday Night Boxing, my favorite.
Love that. And also Nick Ball. I cannot wait for this Nick Ball fight.
It's going to be really good. Thanks so much for rocking with us this morning, guys. We'll be back early next week with you, and leave some comments if you're watching the live after. Peace out.